folks know that I have a real soft place in my cholesterol-ridden heart for the Fifth Doctor, so I get really excited and optimistic when Big Finish drop a brand new Fifth Doctor box set. This one, the first one of the year, is the Fifth Doctor Adventures The Dream Team. As you can see here from the cover, the gorgeous cover here, it stars Peter Davison as the Fifth Doctor, Janet Fielding as Tegan, Matthew Waterhouse as Adric, and Sarah Sutton as Nyssa. We also have some dream crabs here as well. We've got two stories here, one of them written by Tim Foley and the other by Lizzie Hopley. The first one, The Merfolk Murders, is a four-parter set in Scotland in the 1940s. We're early into World War II. It's set at St Andrews University. The Doctor and the Dream Team, the titular Dream Team, just land here and get involved in a murder plot. This is very Hercule Poirot. This is very Agatha Christie, where the Doctor has to don an old persona of his in order to solve the case of a mystery, a murder that is apparently completely impossible, where the victim was killed under impossible circumstances. They walk into a locked place and there's no way that they can get in. How on earth is the Doctor going to solve this case? Now, the setting of this in the St Andrews University, it revolves around the Merfolk, who are a enthusiast book club, who are one of the few summer groups that are still meeting during wartime in order to sort of get some escapism there. And one of the books that they're talking about is the case book of Orion Hood. And the Doctor is quite a bit cagey when it comes to the details about just who Orion Hood is. And while Adric and Tegan are skulking around the library trying to find a copy of these Orion Hood books in order to take part in the book club, they look through the illustrations and they find a very familiar person within the pages of these books. And then they confront him on it. So let's play a quick clip from The Merfolk Murders.
What's this all about, Tegan?
I said it should wait till afterwards.
What should?
Dr. Orion Hood.
All of them.
Take a look, Nyssa. What am I looking at? The illustrations.
I was going to tell you all eventually.
I still don't... Oh. The curly hair. The toothy grin. This was you.
Yes, the Doctor I knew.
We knew him too.
Barely. Though he's not wearing a scarf.
That's my detective outfit.
Your what?
People expected it. The cape, the deerstalker.
Start from the beginning.
It was another life. Quite literally, as you've noticed. My friend Sarah and I solved a number of mysteries.
Sarah Joan Watson.
Sarah Jane Smith. We both had pseudonyms. And the stories are based on actual... There'll be a list somewhere. Yes, there were a few full-length novels. We spent months in Baker Street at the turn of the century. Sarah was paid by the word to... The Murder of Lord Acra, that was our first. An archaeologist stabbed in a locked room. That adaptation required some artistic license. It didn't even happen on Earth.
So you were a private detective?
Yes. I enjoyed it at the time, but murder is a distasteful business, as you'll recall from Cranley Hall. I'm glad my crime-solving days are over.
Thomas Jerome Newton in the chat, wasn't one black orchid enough? Yeah, there's a lot of references to that. They know that they're clearly reliving a very similar type of adventure here. There's a murder mystery in a period setting with the same TARDIS team. It's basically a sequel to Black Orchid. They even have a running joke about how Adric is just really, really hungry all the time, to the extent where his love of just smuggling sandwiches in his pockets is an actual plot point. But one thing that Tim Foley seems to really like doing with his writing on Doctor Who, and one thing he did last year with Pursuit of the Nightjar, which was, if not my favourite, at least top 3 favourite Doctor Who stories that Big Finish released last year. Tim Foley is an absolute legend when it comes to writing Doctor Who Big Finish stuff, in my opinion. In Pursuit of the Nightjar, we learnt about the Doctor's first influence that made him want to travel throughout time and space when he first left Gallifrey with his granddaughter Susan. And now here, it's okay, this is a secret chapter of my life when in my previous incarnation, myself and Sarah Jane solved murder mysteries and she wrote them in fictionalized books called The Orion Hood Mysteries. Some really fun, interesting lore, and there's a really nice little wrinkle about why the Fifth Doctor is a bit hesitant and reluctant to pick up the Deerstalker again and solve this particular mystery in a way that his previous incarnation, the Fourth Doctor, would have like jumped at the chance with his teeth and curls and his booming voice. He would have like absolutely immediately sat everyone down for interrogations, but the Fifth Doctor's not really like that. He's got a different sort of tact to him, and I love that Tim Foley has that sort of that grasp of this particular incarnation. I think it's like the Fifth Doctor is my favorite Doctor, and I think one reason I resonate so much with Tim Foley's work is that we seem to be on a very similar wavelength in how we view the Fifth Doctor as a character, and I'm very like glad that my favorite Doctor has been done such good justice with their box sets recently by such a terrific writer as well. But the mystery itself, it's a standard, in terms of tone, Agatha Christie mystery, but with some really lovely and textured characters written throughout of it. You've got, of course, the private who's been stationed there for the war effort. You've got the sister of the deceased who might be a secret twin, and like Tegan has some wonderfully fun moments in this story where partly she wants to solve the mystery, but also she's trying to get the Doctor to like guide her through the mystery in like a different way, because he doesn't want to do the mystery, so she's like poking and prodding, trying to get him to do it and like expose the answers. And she goes through a list of like possible things, like did the victim parachute down? Did the victim like jump out of a plane? And the Doctor's like, Tegan, we didn't hear a plane. That's really, really funny. This is a good like box set overall in terms of utilizing a very crowded TARDIS team, and this one in particular, the Merfolk Murders, which, as the chat pointed out, is not literally about mer people. It's not a sequel to the Underwater Menace. I apologize for getting your expectations so high, but for this story they really utilize the group in very interesting and articulate ways. You've got a big cast of characters because you need a big list of suspects in order to make the mystery seem credible, but also when you throw in a cast of 4 outsiders, the Doctor, Tegan, Nyssa and Adric, you throw them in, it just makes the cast a bit bigger and a bit more convoluted. But if you split the TARDIS team up, divide and conquer, to learn more about the suspects and their backstory or their potential motives. And with Adric in particular, who is not great socially, but he's presented with the idea that murder mysteries are like mathematical equations. And, it's a formula that you have to solve. Because, all good mysteries need to make sense, all good crime fiction needs to stack up under scrutiny. If you treat it like an equation, he's able to understand it. And he even has maybe a potential little bit of like a boy crush on one of the guys who's there, which is very, very sweet and very, very lovely. I will say though, Matthew Waterhouse gives a good performance, but he definitely can't do the Adric voice anymore. His voice has gotten too deep with age. So you do have to suspend some disbelief there in a way that you don't have to with the other cast members. But the character is still quite interesting in these Big Finish audio dramas in a way that didn't really get communicated on screen. Obviously, Big Finish loves to bang the Adric's going to die one day drum, but in this way it feels quite organic. At one point Adric is asked, like, would you consider getting into academia? Would you want to enroll here as a student or maybe teach one day? And Adric's like, I've never thought about life beyond the Doctor. And the way that manifests over the course of the story is really, really good, to the extent where I wasn't that particularly fussed about the mystery. It's a 4-part story, and it strung me along pretty well in terms of, energy and pace, and I was enjoying it throughout, but the actual A-plot I wasn't that interested in. I was actually interested in learning about the main cast of characters. I really got into it. I wasn't too invested in the actual A-plot in terms of the murder mystery, although, it's a good hook, a potentially impossible murder that should never have possibly happened because of the circumstances and everybody has an alibi. It's the hallmarks of a good mystery. I'm not well versed enough in murder mysteries, in crime fiction, to know if Tim Foley has got, the fundamentals down pat. It's a bit of a blind spot in terms of my engagement in fiction. Right now I'm watching Red Eye on ITV, a series that has been lambasted by critics for being rote and predictable and everything, but I'm enjoying it. Maybe I'm just a bit of a casual guy. When it comes to the genre, I don't know, that's my blind spot. I'm a simple guy with simple needs. But the Merfolk Murders I really enjoyed. I really liked it a lot. It didn't really move me in terms of big emotions, but there's a lot of great interesting character work going on throughout it. There's a lot of interesting themes boiling under the hood with these characters. Even Nyssa gets she gets probably the least to do out of the quartet here. But a nice little will they, won't they love story, like happens with her over the course of the 4-part. I liked it. It was a really, really good, engaging listen. Not like super enthralling, but I was really enjoying it throughout, and my time I think was really well spent with the Merfolk murders. And then with the Dream Team box set, we get to the titular, the attention-grabbing headline story, which is Dream Team by Lizzie Hopley. It's a 2-parter, where the Doctor, Nyssa, Tegan, and Adric land on Concordium, which, but basically, the reason they land there is because the TARDIS is infiltrated by a hard cell virus, which is basically like a super advanced advert. Like, you have cookies on your browser where basically your browser and the internet search history remembers all of the websites that you've been visiting and things that you've been searching for, so then the quote cookies, they will save that data, and then when you have adverts pop up to you, they'll be tailored specifically to you. It's why you could be talking with a friend about Taylor Swift concerts, for example, and then the next thing you see on your phone will be, oh, here's an advert for Taylor Swift tickets. It's kind of mad. It's kind of mad how that happens. Nothing nefarious there. But it's a really fun sci-fi conceit where the Doctor is intrigued by the source of adverts powerful enough to infiltrate the TARDIS, so goes to investigate the source of it, and they land on Concordium, which is this big, like, leisure facility where, like, you get those team building companies like escape rooms or like rock climbing and stuff. It's a recreational facility where people from companies hire out these spaces for team building exercises in order to facilitate corporate bonding. And they land on this place, and they can't seem to find the reception area. They can't really seem to. They can't find anybody in charge. Nyssa looks out the window and sees a group of people that are hunting nature, hunting wildlife. Goes down to stop them because that's something that she really, really objects to, and discovers that the people down there are actually facsimiles of her closest friends. She is in a dream because of these freaky little things from the last Christmas Stephen Moffat episode, The Dream Crabs. But let's play a quick clip from Dream Team.
Tegan! Adric, what are you doing?
I'll get rid of her!
Tegan! It's Nyssa!
Get her in the net!
Adric? What's going on? Adric, stop! What are you doing? No! Ah!
Nyssa,
Doctor!
I need you to come back inside.
But Tegan and Adric,
They're not here.
What?
Look at me. Only at me. Use your ears, Nyssa. What can you hear?
Adric and Tegan. Chanting, attacking.
And is that possible?
Of course not. But...
No, don't look around. I need you to clear your mind. Think of the Delta Wave Augmenter, the one thing that can give you peace, control over your thoughts.
Why?
Because right now, you are asleep. And I need you to wake up.
What?
There's something very dangerous on this beach, Nyssa. Something that shouldn't be here. It'll be all right. I just need you to acknowledge that this is not real.
But...
No one is on this beach but you and I. The only thing you can hear are the waves crashing on the rocks. Am I right?
Yes.
Nyssa, you have to wake up.
You keep saying that.
Use your senses. There's a breeze off the sea. You felt it when you came outside, but you can't feel it now because there is something wrapped around your face.
What?
Feeding you false information to distract you. Adric and Tegan are not here, and you are currently lying in the sand, asleep. Nyssa, wake up.
Now, the Cantrafari, which is the name that the Dream Crabs are actually called, but I can never ever bloody remember it, they've been quite a tough nut to crack for Big Finish. They tried in the Classic Doctor's New Monsters box set last year in a 2-part story, Together in Eclectic Dreams, by Roy Gill, and If I Should Die Before I Wait by John Dorney. And what kind of went wrong with that story, it was a fine story, but what kind of went wrong with that is that if you've seen Last Christmas, you've seen all of these beats before with the Cantrafari, you know, the dream within the dream, the false starts, and the alternative reality, and is this person really here, or am I talking to a dreamscape? Or, like, it felt like they couldn't really get much more mileage out of the Dream Crabs. And to be fair to them, that's difficult because Last Christmas covered a lot of ground with that premise. And of course, fiction since inception, most notably, is like has been like replete with dream within dream like fiction. That's happened quite frequently. But what I liked about Dream Team by Lizzie Hopley is that stuff is still kind of bog standard, business as usual. The dream within a dream, alternate realities. Is the Doctor really talking to me? Can you die within the dream? There's a great callback to, I think, the Nyssa pointing the gun meme at one point, which I thought was very funny. But for this story, what Lizzie Hopley's done is that the Dream Crabs themselves are kind of what you'd expect if you've watched Last Christmas. But the actual overarching utilizing of their abilities, like as in like who is doing this, who is in control of the Dream Crabs, and for what end, that's the interesting wrinkle. I think that's what the classic Doctor's New Monsters box set kind of struggled with, finding a vector for a different villain or a different antagonist through the Dream Crabs. For Dream Team, this was a really cool setting. I think the performances are really strong across the board. I think there's a really great pairing with Janet Fielding and Matthew Waterhouse in this story. I think those two get along really, really great in this particular story. It's essentially a four-hander. You heard all the voices in that clip as well, the people screaming at Nyssa. They were Peter Davison, Janet Fielding, Sarah Sutton, and Matthew Waterhouse. Like, the only people in the cast of this story are those four actors. And it's a great way to, like, in a way, necessity was the mother of invention here. Like, Lizzie Hopley was told by the producer, can you do a four-hander story, like, with just these four actors? And Lizzie Hopley did it, and that actually adds a lot to the subtext in regards to, like, the adverts that they're being sold are narrated by specific people. Like, it's some really great audio details throughout. It's a nice, breezy two-parter. I think that's one reason why Dream Team works. If this was another four-parter, like the Merfolk Murders, which had a bigger cast, which had a big conspiracy, big wartime mystery thriller angle to it, including, like, a bunch of references to the Doctor's past, included but not limited to his time in the War Office. One person in that story recognizes him as working for Churchill. But with Dream Team, it's a lot more scaled down. It's a lot more like existential horror, like psychological stuff. I appreciated that a lot. I think the Dream Team is a really good box set in regards to its variety. These are the type of Big Finish box sets that I appreciate, where these two stories really like complement each other by their differences. By, of course, the theme here is the Dream Team, the Dream Crabs, and these four characters. But all four of them are utilized really well in both stories. But also, the Merfolk Murders is a 1940s Agatha Christie-style wartime mystery, and in Dream Team, it's a psychological horror, with the Dream Crabs in space being sold targeted adverts. You know, these two couldn't be any more different, but they're united by just really great quality and a really terrific cast. I really liked this a lot. I liked Dream Team a lot. I really, really enjoyed it. You even get a little audio book as well that comes with it called Meanwhile Turlough by Jonathan Blum, which sees the Fifth Doctor with Tegan and Turlough later on in his life. And the Doctor and Tegan are away trying to stop a virus from wiping out this planet, and Turlough is left behind as like the collateral for this Overseer character. But the Overseer, knows that Turlough is essentially a fugitive, that he's a wanted man because he's meant to be in exile, he's meant to be working for the Black Guardian, and uses that leverage to force Turlough to betray the Doctor. And it's basically a 1 hour character study on Turlough and like what's motivating him to stay with the Doctor, what compels Turlough to still at the end of the day be a good guy, be a companion of the Doctor. It's really good. It's narrated by Dan Starkey, who does a very good Turlough impression, like a surprisingly good Turlough impression. That kind of blindsided me a little, but it's really well narrated, it's really witty, I liked the prose a lot. So yeah, this is a really good box set with 3 strong stories: Merfolk Murders, Dream Team, and Meanwhile Turlough. Really well-rounded, really fun box set. I honestly enjoyed it from beginning to end, and I have very few complaints. Very few complaints.